There is someone listening to these words today who has been asking the same question over and over again. God, why am I still here? Why does it feel like my life has stopped while everyone else keeps moving? If that is you, I want you to know something before we go any further. Your life has not been forgotten, your purpose has not been cancelled, and your silence is not God's absence. Some of the greatest miracles begin in places that look ordinary. Some of the strongest people are not built on stages but in hidden rooms where no one applauds them. If God has been keeping you home, it may not be because He is punishing you. It may be because He is preparing you. We live in a world that celebrates movement. It tells us that if we're not constantly achieving, traveling, posting, building, or proving ourselves, then we're falling behind. But heaven doesn't measure success the way the world does. God is not impressed by how busy you are. He is interested in who you are becoming. Maybe you've watched opportunities disappear. Maybe invitations stopped coming. Maybe doors that you prayed would open remain shut. Maybe you feel isolated, overlooked and forgotten. But what if the closed door isn't rejection? What if it's protection? What if the delay is actually divine direction? Think about a seed for a moment. Before anyone sees the beauty of the tree, the seed spends time buried in darkness. No one celebrates the seed while it's underground. No one takes pictures of it. No one applauds its progress. Yet beneath the surface, something extraordinary is happening. Roots are growing where nobody can see. That is exactly how God often works. While you think nothing is happening, heaven is doing its deepest work. God is strengthening your character. He's healing wounds you didn't even know you carried. He's breaking habits that would destroy your future. He's teaching you to depend on Him instead of depending on applause, recognition, or people's approval. Sometimes God removes you from the crowd because the crowd is too loud for you to hear His voice. Have you noticed that when life becomes quiet, uncomfortable thoughts begin to surface? The pain you've ignored, the fears you've buried, the dreams you've abandoned. That's not an accident. God often uses stillness to reveal what busyness has been hiding. The home you're sitting in today may feel like a prison, but it could actually be a sanctuary. Because before God changes your surroundings, He often changes your heart. I know waiting is hard. I know loneliness can feel unbearable. I know watching others move forward while you remain in the same place can make you question your worth. But your value has never been determined by your visibility. You don't become important because people notice you. You are important because God created you with intention. Remember this, hidden does not mean abandoned. Just because people cannot see your progress doesn't mean progress isn't happening. The greatest transformations often happen in private. David was alone with sheep before he stood before a giant. Moses spent years in the wilderness before leading a nation. Joseph sat in a prison before sitting in a palace. Their hidden seasons were not wasted seasons. They were preparation seasons. And maybe that's exactly where you are. Perhaps God is teaching you patience because your future will require endurance. Perhaps He's teaching you humility because influence without humility destroys people. Perhaps He's teaching you trust because where He's taking you, your own strength will never be enough. You see, we often pray for promotion, but we resist preparation. We ask God for bigger blessings while ignoring the smaller lessons. But every lesson matters. Every quiet day matters. Every tear matters. Every unanswered prayer matters. Because nothing is wasted in God's hands. Some of you are carrying guilt from your past. You keep replaying old mistakes and wondering if God can still use you. Listen carefully. Your failures do not surprise God. He already knew every weakness before He called you. His grace is greater than your regrets. Stop believing the lie that you're too broken to be chosen. God has always used imperfect people, not because they were flawless, but because they were willing. And maybe today, He's asking you to become willing again. Willing to trust when you don't understand. Willing to wait when nothing makes sense. willing to believe when your emotions tell you to give up. Faith is not pretending everything feels good. Faith is choosing to trust God even when you cannot see what He's doing. That's real faith. There are battles you never saw because God fought them before they ever reached your door. There are relationships that ended because they were leading you away from your purpose. There are opportunities you lost because they would have cost you your peace. There are delays that saved your life. One day you'll look back and realize that what felt like God's silence was actually His protection. He wasn't ignoring your prayers. He was answering them in ways you couldn't yet understand. So, if today you're sitting in your home feeling forgotten, don't mistake stillness for failure. Don't mistake waiting for weakness. Don't mistake hiddenness for hopelessness. God often hides what He intends to reveal at the perfect time. An artist covers a masterpiece while it's being painted. A builder fences off a construction site while the foundation is being laid. In the same way, God sometimes keeps you away from public view because your foundation is still being strengthened. The world celebrates what is visible. God values what is eternal. Your hidden season is producing something that applause never could. A deeper faith, a gentler spirit, a stronger heart, a wiser mind, an unshakable relationship with Him. And when the right moment comes, you won't have to force doors open. You won't have to chase validation. You won't have to convince people of your worth. The God who prepared you in private will position you in public. Until then, don't despise the quiet days. Pray in the quiet. Grow in the quiet. Heal in the quiet. Forgive in the quiet. Dream in the quiet. Because the same God who is working in the spotlight is also working in the silence. And I want to leave you with this truth deep in your heart today. You are not stuck. You are not forgotten. You are not being left behind. You are being prepared by the hands of a loving God who sees every tear, hears every prayer, and knows every fear before you speak it. So lift your head again. Take one more step. Pray one more prayer. Believe one more time. Because your story is not over. Your calling is still alive. Your purpose is still waiting. And the God who has been working where no one could see is about to reveal a strength within you that even you didn't know existed. Hold on a little longer. Trust a little deeper. Hope a little stronger. Because what God is building in you during this hidden season will become the very thing that carries you into the life He has prepared for you. And when that day comes, you'll finally understand that staying home was never the end of your story. It was the place where God was quietly writing your greatest chapter. I want to speak directly to the person who has been wondering why life suddenly became so quiet. You keep looking around and asking yourself, why am I spending so much time at home? Why have the opportunities slowed down? Why does it seem like everyone else is moving forward while I'm standing still? If those questions have been echoing in your heart, I want you to know that you are not alone. More importantly, I want you to understand something that could completely change the way you see this season of your life. What if God is not punishing you? What if He is preparing you? What if this season that feels like isolation is actually one of the greatest demonstrations of His love? We often misunderstand the way God works because we expect Him to move according to our timeline. We think that if God loves us, every door should open immediately. We believe that if we are faithful, every prayer should receive an instant answer. But throughout history, God has consistently done some of His greatest work in places where no one was watching. He has always been more concerned with preparing the person than promoting the person. Before He places someone on the mountain, He first strengthens them in the valley. Before He entrusts someone with influence, He teaches them obedience. Before He reveals the purpose, He develops the character that can carry it. Perhaps you've been asking God to give you a bigger platform while He has been asking you to build a stronger foundation. The truth is, a weak foundation cannot support a great calling. Imagine trying to build the tallest building in the world on soft ground. It might look impressive for a while, but eventually it would collapse under its own weight. God refuses to let that happen to his children. Sometimes he delays the blessing because he loves you too much to give you something before you're ready to carry it. His delays are not evidence of rejection, they are evidence of wisdom. The world tells us that isolation is failure. It says that if people are not calling, if opportunities are not appearing, or if your life feels slower than everyone else's, then something must be wrong with you. But heaven tells a completely different story. God often pulls his people away from the noise because there are lessons that can only be learned in silence. There are wounds that can only be healed when distractions are removed. There are conversations with God that cannot happen when your life is filled with constant activity. Sometimes the greatest blessing is not another opportunity, but a season where you finally have enough quiet to hear God's voice clearly. Think about how many times we fill every empty moment with entertainment, social media, work, or endless conversations because we're afraid of silence. Yet, it is often in silence that God begins revealing the parts of our hearts that need healing. Suddenly, old fears rise to the surface. Unforgiveness that has been buried for years begins demanding attention. Insecurities you've hidden behind achievements become impossible to ignore. At first, this feels uncomfortable, but what if that discomfort is actually mercy? God is exposing what he intends to heal. He cannot restore what we continue to hide. He lovingly brings broken places into the light so his healing can reach them. Many people pray for God to use them, but few are willing to let him transform them first. We love the idea of being chosen, but we often resist the process of becoming ready. We celebrate victories without appreciating the preparation behind them. We admire strong faith without realizing how many lonely nights produced it. We applaud confidence without knowing how many battles had to be fought in private before that confidence was born. The strongest believers are rarely made in moments of comfort. They are shaped in seasons where they have nothing to depend on except God himself. Maybe you've noticed that people who used to be part of your life have quietly disappeared. Relationships changed. Invitations stopped coming. The circle became smaller. At first you may have thought something was wrong, but perhaps God was simply removing voices that were distracting you from his own. Sometimes he reduces the crowd so you can recognize who truly belongs in your future. Not everyone who begins the journey with you is meant to walk into your destiny with you. God is not taking people away to leave you empty. He is making room for the relationships that align with the purpose he has prepared for your life. There are moments when staying home feels like being left behind. You see others celebrating promotions, traveling, building businesses, getting married, achieving dreams, and you wonder if you've somehow missed your opportunity. But comparison is one of the greatest thieves of peace. God has never asked you to measure your journey against someone else's timeline. Every life has a different assignment, and every assignment requires a different season of preparation. Just because someone else's harvest has arrived does not mean your field has been forgotten. Some trees produce fruit quickly, while others take years to grow deep roots before they bear anything at all. Yet those deeper roots often produce greater strength and longer-lasting fruit. If God is keeping you hidden today, it may be because your future requires a depth that cannot be developed in public. Public success often attracts applause, but private preparation develops humility. Without humility, success becomes dangerous. Without wisdom, influence becomes destructive. Without character, blessings can become burdens. God knows exactly what your future demands, and he is preparing you accordingly. He sees challenges that you cannot yet imagine. He knows battles that have not yet appeared. What feels unnecessary today may become the very strength that saves you tomorrow. Sometimes we interpret unanswered prayers as God's silence, but his silence is often filled with unseen activity. While you are waiting, he is arranging circumstances you cannot see. He is protecting you from opportunities that would damage your peace. He is closing doors that would lead you away from your purpose. He is allowing certain disappointments because they are directing you towards something greater. If you could see everything God sees, You would probably thank him for many of the prayers he did not answer the way you expected. I know there are days when loneliness feels overwhelming. There are nights when you wonder whether anyone notices your tears. There are mornings when getting out of bed feels harder than anyone realizes. But hear this with all your heart. Your Heavenly Father has never taken his eyes off you. Every tear has been seen. Every whispered prayer has been heard. Every moment you felt forgotten has been known by the one who formed you. Human beings may overlook your struggle, but God never overlooks his children. He is closer than your fears would have you believe. So instead of asking, "Why am I being kept here?" perhaps begin asking, "Lord, what are you teaching me here?" That single question can transform frustration into expectation. Instead of counting what you've lost, begin noticing what God is building. Perhaps he's teaching you patience that will keep you steady in future storms. Perhaps he's developing compassion through your pain so you can comfort someone else one day. Perhaps he's strengthening your faith until it becomes unshakable. Every day in this hidden season has purpose, even if you cannot yet recognize it. One day you will look back on this chapter of your life with different eyes. The very season you once called lonely will become the season that made you stronger. The quiet house that felt empty will become the place where your relationship with God grew deeper than ever before. The waiting that seemed unbearable will become proof that God's timing was wiser than your own. You will discover that you were never abandoned. You were being prepared. The Lord was not punishing you by keeping you home. He was protecting your future, healing your heart, strengthening your spirit, and shaping you into the person your calling requires. And when the time comes for him to open the right door, you will walk through it with confidence, humility, wisdom, and faith, knowing that every hidden day was a necessary part of the beautiful story he was writing all along. There are moments in life when it feels as though heaven has gone completely silent. You pray with all your heart, yet nothing seems to change. You wait for a breakthrough, but the days continue to look the same. You ask God for direction, but instead of hearing an immediate answer, you are met with stillness. In those moments, it is easy to believe that nothing is happening. It is easy to wonder if God has forgotten your name, overlooked your situation, or turned his attention to someone else. But I want you to hear this truth with your whole heart today. Just because you cannot see God working does not mean he has stopped working. The greatest mistake we can make is assuming that God's activity is limited to what our eyes can see. Our vision is limited, but his wisdom is limitless. We see the present moment, while he sees the beginning, the middle, and the end, all at once. We see today's disappointment, but he already sees tomorrow's victory. We see a closed door, but he sees the danger behind it that we were never meant to face. Think about a seed that has just been planted beneath the ground. If you walk by that field every day, you may think nothing is changing. The soil looks exactly the same. There is no visible sign of life. There are no leaves, no branches, and no fruit. If you judged only by what you could see, you would conclude that the seed is lifeless. But beneath the surface, an incredible process has already begun. The shell is breaking apart. Tiny roots are stretching deeper into the earth. Strength is being developed long before beauty becomes visible. The seed is not dead. It is growing where no one can see it. In the same way, God often does his deepest work beneath the surface of our lives. While you are looking for visible signs of progress, he is strengthening your faith, reshaping your heart, renewing your mind, and preparing your future. Invisible does not mean inactive. Hidden does not mean hopeless. One of the hardest parts of trusting God is accepting that his greatest work often happens behind the scenes. We live in a generation that wants instant results. We are surrounded by stories of overnight success, quick answers, and immediate gratification. We expect everything to happen now. But God's kingdom has never operated according to the world's timetable. He is never rushed, never late, and never confused. Every moment of waiting has purpose. Every delay carries meaning, Every unanswered prayer is held in the hands of a Father who knows exactly what he is doing. When God seems silent, he is not absent. Silence is not evidence of abandonment. Sometimes, silence is the sound of God arranging circumstances that your human eyes are not yet able to recognize. Imagine watching a master artist paint a masterpiece. If you only saw the first few brushstrokes, you might think the painting looked messy and incomplete. Colors appear in unexpected places, shapes make no sense. The canvas seems confusing. But the artist is never worried because he already knows what the finished picture will become. The problem is not with the painting. The problem is that you are judging it before it is finished. Many of us do the same thing with our lives. We judge God's work while he is still creating it. We become discouraged because we are looking at an unfinished chapter instead of trusting the author who has already written the ending. Perhaps you have experienced doors closing that you desperately wanted to walk through. Maybe you prayed for a relationship that suddenly ended. Maybe you hoped for a job that never came. Maybe you dreamed about an opportunity that disappeared without explanation. At the time, those moments probably felt like rejection. They may have broken your heart and left you asking God why he allowed them to happen. But what if those closed doors were not punishment? What if they were protection? How many dangers has God quietly kept you from without ever telling you? How many wrong relationships, harmful decisions, financial disasters, or painful situations has he prevented simply by saying no? We often thank God for the blessings we receive, but one day we may thank him even more for the things he lovingly refused to give us. There are battles taking place in the spiritual realm that we cannot see with our physical eyes. God is working in ways that go far beyond our understanding. While you are sleeping, he is still working. While you are crying, he is still working. While you are questioning him, he is still working. While you are waiting, he is still working. He never takes a break from caring for his children. He never becomes distracted. He never loses control. Even when everything around you feels uncertain, God remains firmly seated on his throne, holding every detail of your life in his hands. Sometimes, God allows us to wait because waiting develops trust. It is easy to believe when everything happens immediately, but real faith is revealed when nothing seems to change. Faith is not seeing the entire staircase before taking the first step. Faith is choosing to walk because you trust the one who is leading you. Every day that you continue praying despite not seeing immediate answers is evidence that your faith is becoming stronger. Every time you choose hope instead of despair, you are allowing God to build spiritual muscles that will carry you through future challenges. Many people assume that God's greatest blessings are external, new opportunities, financial increase, successful careers, or public recognition. While those blessings certainly have value, God's greatest work often happens internally before it ever appears externally. He transforms the heart before he transforms the circumstances. He heals your character before he changes your environment. He teaches forgiveness before he grants promotion. He develops humility before he entrusts influence. These invisible changes may not receive applause from the world, but they are priceless in the eyes of heaven. A transformed heart is a greater miracle than a changed circumstance, because a changed heart can remain faithful regardless of what happens around it. Maybe you've noticed yourself becoming more patient than you used to be. Maybe you have found peace in situations that once filled you with anxiety. Maybe you've started responding with kindness where you once reacted with anger. These changes may seem small, but they are evidence that God has been working all along. His fingerprints are often found in the quiet transformations that happen inside us. We are so focused on asking God to change our circumstances that we sometimes overlook the miracle of him changing us. Remember that the sun is still shining even when thick clouds cover the sky. The clouds may prevent you from seeing its light, but they never remove its presence. In the same way, your problems may temporarily block your view of God's work, but they can never stop his power. Your feelings are real, but they are not always reliable. There will be days when you do not feel God's presence, yet he remains as close as he has always been. His promises are not based on your emotions, they are based on his unchanging character. He is faithful even when your faith feels weak. He remains constant even when your heart feels uncertain. One day, there will come a moment when everything begins to make sense. You will look back and realize why certain prayers took longer to answer. You will understand why certain people had to leave your life. You will see why some dreams had to be delayed. You will recognize that every season of waiting was accomplishing something greater than you could have imagined. The tears you cried were watering seeds that would eventually bloom into blessings. The silence that once frightened you was actually filled with God's unseen activity. The delays that made you question His love were preparing you for a future that required greater strength, deeper wisdom, and unwavering faith. So if your life feels uncertain today, do not lose heart. If you cannot see what God is doing, keep trusting Him anyway. Continue praying even when heaven feels quiet. Continue believing even when nothing appears to be changing. Continue walking forward even when the path is unclear. The God who created the stars without your help, who orders every sunrise without fail, and who knows every hair on your head, has not stopped working in your life. His hands are moving even when your eyes cannot detect them. His plan is unfolding even when your understanding falls short. Hold on to hope, because the story is not finished. What feels like an empty season today may one day become the greatest evidence that God was working behind the scenes all along, carefully arranging every detail for your good, your growth, and His perfect purpose. I want you to imagine something with me for a moment. Picture yourself standing at the end of this difficult season. Imagine looking back over every lonely night, every unanswered prayer, every tear that fell when no one was watching, every moment you questioned whether God still had a plan for your life. Now imagine realizing that none of it was wasted. Imagine discovering that every painful experience, every delay, every disappointment, and every season of waiting became part of a story so powerful that it inspired others to keep believing. That is what God does. He has always been in the business of turning hidden seasons into unforgettable testimonies. What you are living through today may feel like the hardest chapter of your life, but it could become the very chapter that gives someone else the courage to keep going tomorrow. The world often celebrates people after they succeed, but it rarely sees the journey that made them who they are. It applauds the victory but overlooks the sacrifice. It notices the confidence but never witnesses the countless moments of fear that had to be overcome. The same is true in our walk with God. People may one day admire your faith, but they will never fully know how many nights you cried yourself to sleep while still choosing to trust Him. They may see your peace, but they won't know how many battles you fought in silence before that peace took root in your heart. Your hidden season is creating a testimony that cannot be manufactured. It is producing something authentic, something that comes only from walking through the fire while refusing to let go of God's hand. One of the greatest lies the enemy whispers during difficult seasons is that your suffering has no purpose. He wants you to believe that your pain is meaningless, that your waiting is pointless, and that your tears are forgotten. But God's word and His character tell a completely different story. God never wastes anything that is surrendered to Him. He does not waste heartbreak. He does not waste failure. He does not waste rejection. He does not waste loneliness. Even your mistakes, when placed in His hands with a repentant heart, can become lessons that strengthen your future. The very experiences you wish you could erase may one day become the reason someone else finds hope. Think about how often people are encouraged, not by someone who has lived a perfect life, but by someone who has survived a difficult one. A person who has walked through darkness speaks with a different kind of authority. Their words carry weight because they have been tested. Their faith becomes believable because it has been proven through trials. When you tell someone that God is faithful after you've experienced loss, those words have power. When you speak about peace after surviving anxiety, people listen. When you encourage someone to trust God after He carried you through your own valley, your testimony becomes living evidence that He still works miracles. Your pain gives your message credibility, and your perseverance gives others permission to believe again. There may be days when you wonder why God allowed certain things to happen. You replay old memories and ask questions that seem to have no answers. Why did that relationship end? Why did that opportunity disappear? Why did the people you trusted walk away? Why did the answer take so long? While we may not understand every reason on this side of eternity, we can trust that God sees a bigger picture than we do. What feels like unnecessary suffering today may become essential preparation for tomorrow. Sometimes God allows us to experience certain storms because He knows someone else will one day need a guide who understands how to survive them. Imagine trying to comfort someone who is grieving when you have never experienced deep loss. Your words may be kind, but they cannot carry the same understanding as someone who has walked through similar pain. God often allows His children to endure certain seasons because He knows they will one day become healers for others. The comfort you receive from Him becomes the comfort you are able to give away. The strength He builds in your life becomes a shelter for someone whose world is falling apart. Your testimony is never meant to stop with you. It becomes a bridge that leads others toward hope. Perhaps right now you feel hidden, unnoticed, and forgotten. You wonder whether anyone even realizes the battles you're fighting. But remember this: the audience that matters most has never taken His eyes off you. God sees every quiet act of obedience. He notices every prayer whispered through tears. He celebrates every moment you choose forgiveness over bitterness, faith over fear, and hope over despair. The world may overlook those victories, but heaven never does. God's approval has never depended on public recognition. Some of His greatest rewards are reserved for those who remained faithful when nobody was watching. The beautiful thing about a testimony is that it cannot exist without a test. We all love hearing stories of victory, but every victory is born from a battle. Every testimony begins with uncertainty. Every miracle starts with a problem that seemed impossible. If everything in life happened exactly the way we planned, we would never experience the depth of God's faithfulness. We would know about Him, but we might never truly know Him. Difficult seasons teach us to rely on His strength instead of our own. They reveal His presence in ways that comfortable seasons often cannot. You may not realize it now, but someone is going to need the version of you that emerges from this hidden season. They will need the wisdom you gained while waiting. They will need the compassion you developed through suffering. They will need the patience you learned in uncertainty. They will need the faith you discovered when everything around you seemed to fall apart. If God rescued you instantly from every trial, you might miss the opportunity to become the person who helps rescue someone else. There is also something incredibly beautiful about God's timing. He does not reveal His work before it is complete. Just as a sculptor carefully shapes a masterpiece before unveiling it, God often keeps His greatest work hidden until the right moment. You may feel unseen today, but that does not mean you always will. When God chooses to reveal what He has been building in you, people will not simply see success, they will see His faithfulness. They will recognize that your strength was not something you created on your own. They will see evidence of a God who never abandoned His child, even during the hardest seasons. And when that day comes, don't forget where God found you. Remember the quiet room where you learned to pray when nobody else was listening. Remember the nights when hope was all you had left. Remember the mornings when you chose to trust God, even though you couldn't understand His plan. Those moments will keep you humble. They will remind you that everything you have is a gift of grace. True greatness is never about forgetting the valley after reaching the mountaintop. It is about using the lessons from the valley to help others climb. So if you're still in the middle of your hidden season, don't give up. Don't believe the lie that nothing good can come from your waiting. Don't think your story has ended because this chapter is difficult. God is still writing. Every tear you shed is becoming part of a testimony. Every prayer you whisper is preparing you for a greater purpose. Every moment you remain faithful is shaping a future that will bring glory to Him. One day, someone will ask how you found peace when everything seemed to be falling apart. They will ask how you kept believing when your prayers seemed unanswered. They will wonder how you found hope in the middle of heartbreak. And with a grateful heart, you will be able to smile and say that it wasn't your strength that carried you, it was the faithfulness of God. You will look back and realize that your hidden season was never the end of your story. It was the beginning of the testimony that God had been writing all along, a testimony that would not only transform your own life, but would become a light for countless others searching for hope, healing, and the assurance that God never wastes a single moment, surrendered into His loving hands.